Hi everyone, welcome to the Restoring Rapport podcast. My name is Seth Hensley and this is a show dedicated to young believers pursuing the goal of healthy marriage and family. You know, we live in a world where getting married and starting a family is far too often postponed for longer than God designed and pushed to the back burner in favor of less important things. But the good news is that it doesn't have to stay this way. As young believers, we have the choice to prioritize what matters most in our lives every day and to live face to face with God and others. Every Thursday and Sunday on this show, I'll be sharing research, conducting interviews, and reviewing articles on the importance of marriage and family for society. I'll also be releasing exclusive content such as spoken word poetry, allegorical short stories, and bonus episodes for subscribers. Friends, God did not set us up to live life alone. The truth of the matter is that every minute of your adult life that you wait to marry is a minute of your life that you're not spending with your life partner. While some might be content to live with the consequences of this arrangement, I would argue that those who wish to spend as much of their life as possible with their mate are perfectly within reason and soundness of value to do so. It is my deepest hope that this podcast inspires Generation Z to pursue marriage, become the best spouses and parents the world has ever seen, serve with furious intentionality, love well, and discover the joy of hanging the moon for another. To access my sources, subscribe to the show, or get your copy of my latest book, visit anchor.fm/Seth-Hensley or check out the show notes of each episode. Hello everyone, welcome to episode 97 of the Restoring Rapport podcast. We're super excited for the content we've got planned out for you guys today. As always, this is a show about keeping marriage and family as central goals for young believers and prioritizing relationship in a world of many distractions. And this is going to be the episode where Landon and I sit down and we do our yearly summit. Those of you who were here last year may remember we did that in episode 23. We just kind of did an overview of all that we'd done on the show in the past year, as well as a kind of a look into the future at what we're going to be doing in the year 2023. So that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to be giving you guys kind of a grand 10,000 foot overview of all that we've done this past year, what we focused on, and what we're going to be doing next year. And something I really like about being on Spotify is that they give you this thing called a Wrapped, and basically what it is it kind of sums up all the things you've done as a show in the past year. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through the podcasts Spotify Wrapped, and they're going to give us lots of stats and stuff that we've been able to do this past year. It'll be kind of an episode of thanks to you guys, you know, in a huge way for supporting us, but also just a time of celebrating what we've been able to do. Because for those of you who have been around for, since day one, you realize that this year has been our biggest year by far. We've not done anything close. No other year has been anywhere close to what we've been able to accomplish this year. So this has been a big one. Super grateful for you guys coming along, and we'll just go ahead and jump right into this. This is going to be a good one. The first thing that they're going to tell us about here is, I would guess, going to be how many episodes we published. And last year we published I was checking on our Facebook memories, and we published 10 episodes all year last year. Just 10 episodes, guys. This year, well, I don't want to spoil, but I think we have published, if I had to guess, I would say like 40, 50 episodes altogether. It says here that we've created 1,599 minutes of new content. So that's 1,600 minutes of content for you guys just in the year 2022. And that's more than 95% of other podcasters in the social and society and culture category. Which, to me, what's encouraging about that is we haven't... We don't have much competition, and I know that sounds bad, but anytime you can, in the business world, set yourself apart to the point where you don't have any competition and you're the only one able to provide something, you're going to do well.
Right, so, and it's also really encouraging to see that we are providing something that isn't already out there, and there's a need for this, and it's not already being met, so it's definitely encouraging to us that we get to be the outlet. We get to be that provider of something that is needed.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And this is actually the first year, as of a couple of months ago, we got our first co-host, which is Landon. I mean, that's a massive new thing. We started the year off. Guys, what we did, we started the year off was, the way we started the year off last year was we opened up our subscription system. So what we did was we had, every week we would release 2 episodes. One would be free, and then one would be for our paid subscribers. And that's kind of how we started the year off. That was a really interesting time. We did a lot of spoken word poetry, short stories, bonus article reviews for subscribers, a lot of that kind of thing, which that was super great, and that went really well. But why I steered away from that and I started producing 2 free episodes per week was I started to realize that in the early stages of a show, it's really important to stop selling things and start developing your listener base. Because I don't want it to just be like 10 people subscribing. I would like to grow the show beyond that. So that's why I moved away from the 1 free episode a week and 1 paid. I just wanted it to be all free so I could build as fast as possible a listener base, which I think we've done really well on. I read a couple books this past summer on growing a podcast specifically. So that's really helped, and I have seen our numbers go up just by using that, so that's been really exciting. But the thing I want you guys to remember here is, you guys have given us the opportunity to make you 16,000 minutes of content, and that's more than 95% of other creators in our category. So Landon and I are super grateful. We're humbled. We're very appreciative that you would choose to listen to us instead of the millions of other things that you could listen to while you're in the car or whatever. It means a lot to us, and we're super grateful for that. Particularly, there's so much content in the world now. I mean, you've got to be. It means a lot when you click on our podcast. It says the next thing they're going to give us is probably something going to be related to how many episodes. I always think they start off with that, but so far they haven't mentioned anything about it. It says. They're wanting us to guess our number 1 episode. It's either episode 45, The Benefits of Getting Married Young, episode 26, The Burden of the Bereaved. That was a paid subscriber episode. So that's definitely not going to be it because only subscribers could hear that. And then episode 70, Why You May Watch Porn Even Though You Hate It. And the porn one is going to be September. That's a little bit later. June was the first one. Episode 45, The Benefits of Getting Married Young, was actually Landon's first episode on the show. For those of you who may remember, we did an interview with Landon before he was the co-host, which that was like, how many months ago was that? It was in June.
Yeah,
that was quite a while ago. So
yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah, that was one. If I had to guess, I'm going to say that's going to be our most listened to episode this year. We'll see. Just because the interview ones always do well. People like to hear more than one voice, which is why I'm so grateful we have Landon on the show now. The other day, Landon, remember when we were talking? It was the divorce one, and I brought up some random study, but I couldn't remember the name of it, and I didn't even know if it was true. And while I was talking, Landon just fact checks me and is able to tell me the study I was referencing. It was so nice.
I mean, it gives you, I enjoy it a lot. It gives us both an opportunity to bounce our ideas off of each other. Yeah. I've really more recently started to dive into, our reading a lot and trying to develop my own thinking. And something that helps is being able to have a conversation with somebody. And when you're able to do that, you're able to say, okay, well, even though this is something that I'm thinking of, if I'm expressing it and then I get some feedback, it can help me develop my own opinions on something better than if I was just in an echo chamber of my own mind.
For sure. You get a different perspective. You get, the duality of not just talking by yourself for 30 minutes, which is what I did before Landon came, which is it's just incredibly hard. And it's more boring to listen to because you only have one voice and you don't have that multiple perspectives like he's talking about. And that's actually going to get into what I'm excited most for next year. So at the end of the episode, you guys stick around. I'll tell you kind of what that is. But right now we're going through kind of this past year. And by the way, I was correct. When I clicked on episode 45, it said Episode 45 was our most listened to, 367% more streams than our average episode. So, Landon, That's how much people like hearing you. Awesome job. And it says, what else does it say here? Oh, that's the episode, the benefits of getting married young, which doesn't shock me at all because that's exactly what our show is all about. So it's really encouraging to me to see people listening to the episodes that I made the show for, if that makes sense. You know, I made the show for people who are pursuing the goal of getting married young and how good that was and how important it was to do it right. And it's just encouraging to me that got our most listens. So that's super exciting. Hi guys, this is just a quick reminder that you can use the link in the show notes to send me a voice message with a comment or a question. But our number 3, if I had to guess, is going to talk about how many countries listen to our show, because last year they did the same thing. I think we had 6 countries last year. I could be wrong on that, 6 countries listen, but this year we'll see what we've got. I'm going to guess higher, obviously, because we've grown so much. But really, the thing I'm looking forward to most is I want to see how many episodes we publish, because we did like 2 every week, 2 every single week this year, Landon. So I mean, that's going to be a massive number. It was heard in 8 different countries. Last year we had 6. Top 5 were United States, obviously, Czech Republic, Hong Kong, Australia, and Germany. I did not expect that, particularly in the European countries. I think Europe's kind of progressive in the sense of, on a grand scale, they're really kind of throwing to the wind a lot of the young married stuff, but
I don't know. I mean, we're seeing it here. You know, there is some sort of a snapback with how far we've went with a progressive waiting. You know, that more liberal mindset of waiting and just living life and enjoying life, and you know, that's went so far that I think we're seeing it here, that it's starting to come back and people are hungry for a more conservative, traditional life. Yeah. So maybe this is just like, you know, showing, you know, this isn't just here in the United States that people are feeling this way.
Yeah.
We're starting to, you know, see this happen around the world.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, it's really encouraging to me to think that it's not just a national problem. It's a universal problem. Occurring in all the countries, and people are starting to realize, you know, hey, maybe the way that it's been done, you know, years before we came was actually a good idea. You know, Landon and I talked about that last week. We talked about the arrogance of assuming our generation. Landon called it a culture of narcissism, assuming that you're right and no generation before you has had it right, is kind of not really a great way to live. You don't pick up on all the wisdom of, you know, thousands of years of culture and history and wisdom. You're just going to throw that out the window? I don't think so. Not a great way to live. So love that idea. Love that people are waking up to that and looking back to see how things were done before we were around, you know, because what's been done, you know, in our generation is not the only thing good about, you know, the way to do it. It's just not. We can learn millions of things from previous generations. So that's super encouraging. The next thing it's going to talk about here is, let's see, something magical happened between June 12th and June 18th. We had 186% more listeners compared to your average week. Was that the week that we did? I want to say that's the week we interviewed Jeremy Pryor. I don't know. I take that back. Jeremy Pryor was 21. Jeremy Pryor was 2021. I know that episode, I think, is our most listened to of all time.
Let me look that up real quick.
Yeah, if you can look that up while I'm going here, I can look it up while you're talking next. But I think that was I know it was June where we interviewed Jeremy, but I think it was June of 21, and this past year it must have been something different. Because if this past year, June 12th to June 18th, we had 186% more listeners, that could have been when I was really starting to implement the podcast growth techniques that I'd learned from John Lee Dumas and Robert Kiyosaki. They're really good in that realm of growing shows and stuff. That could have been that week, because before I hadn't been using any of these techniques that they gave me, and it just helped us a lot. But that's a massive spike for 1 week. So I'm wanting to say we had an interview or something that week, but maybe not. Maybe it was just a regular.
Looks like a review of David Brooks' article, "The Nuclear Family Was a Mistake."
Oh, that was the week we did that. Okay. So the nuclear family was a mistake. We reviewed this massive dissertation by David Brooks. I think it lasted us 5 episodes. Some of it was paid, some of it was free, some of it you had to pay for, some of it was free. But we basically went through his entire article, and I thought it was a great job. I mean, David Brooks, I probably disagree with him on some, political things and things like that. But as far as his diagnosis of what's wrong with the family in the modern world, was pretty on point. And again, what I enjoyed most is his alternative. What he was proposing as an alternative to the nuclear family was not the destruction of the nuclear family. It was just adding to it, adding extended family to it, and not taking away that central mom, dad, children unit. Because I think when you mess with that, that's when you get into dangerous waters and kind of can end up in trouble. But interesting to note that was one of your guys' favorite episodes. I didn't realize that was one of your favorite episodes. 186% more listeners that week, the week that we started that interview process, or that review process. It said the next quote, the prompt they're giving us says, "Whoever said sharing is caring was probably a fan of yours." So it's probably going to say something about how amazing you guys are as listeners. Even though this is a review of our statistics. It says your podcast was in the top 10% most shared globally. So that probably means like the different countries that we were shared in. So like, I assume it means like not just USA. It's probably like shared in other countries. It looks like 88% was through Instagram, and then 5% was through a direct link. 3% was some other way of sharing. I don't know what that would be. Maybe like private messaging, a show episode or something. 3% was through Facebook, 1% through text. Next year, guys, I would really like to see us grow on Facebook a little more. I did launch the page for Facebook users this past year, I believe, and it's done pretty well, but it's hard to... I've only got so much time and energy, so it's hard to grow Facebook, Instagram, and the show at the same time. So it's been a little difficult, but hopefully you'll bear with us on that. But guys, just thank you for globally sharing the show. 10% was in the top 10%, our show was, of most shared globally, and this is how they shared it. Top was Instagram by a huge margin, 88% of you shared through Instagram. And that probably, I wonder if that means I think it's just show. It's not the content we produce online. It says our next question is a quiz. It says, what % of listeners follow your podcast? Oh, this is going to be scary. What % of you guys actually follow versus what percentage of you just search something on a podcast distribution site and then click the first thing that comes up? I will say
that I like that it's not giving us anything higher than 30 to choose from.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good sign, I guess. Should be a little bit comforting to us at least. But what %, Landon, of listeners do you think follow the podcast? You got any ideas? Because
I am pretty steadily not optimistic.
Okay.
I'm usually pretty pessimistic, but I will go right down the middle at 20%.
Okay, 20%. All right, so we got one vote for 20%. I'm going to guess... All right. I'm going to bring in some past knowledge here. I know that Apple... Okay, so I know that Apple is the most common way of listening to our show, the Apple Podcast platform. Spotify's second, Apple is first. On Apple... You follow your podcast by clicking that little plus button, and it doesn't subscribe. There's no way of subscribing through the Apple website. You have to do it through our website. On Spotify, you can subscribe through Spotify, so it makes it kind of easier. But still, I'm just wondering how it's kind of easy to follow the show on both of those platforms. So I'm wondering which one would be easier, and that's the one I'm going to go with. I think I'm going to go with Apple, though. And I know a lot of the people who use Apple, I've looked at the show stats before, and I know a lot of them follow. I'm going to go with 30% and be optimistic. We'll see what our answer is here. I clicked 30. Landon might be right, though. It might be 20. No. It says correct. We're in the top 30% most followed podcast. So... does that mean or does that mean it says correct?
I guess that would mean like based off of our followers compared to our listeners. So we're in the top 30% when it comes to how many people actually follow us,
click
that
the follow
listen
button
to us.
Yeah, I think so too. Because a lot of what you guys I think don't realize is that, even if you listen to every episode we have, and you don't follow the show, we don't see you as a follower. So like if you're listening to everything that we put out and you don't follow the show on whatever platform you use, we don't know that you're a follower at all. So that's interesting. Be sure to follow the show, rate and review, all that. That helps us grow. But thank you guys so much for putting us in the top 30% most followed podcast according to this stat here. It says we're in the top 30%. I'd say that means that let's say 100% is all the podcasts you listen to. You only subscribe to 30% of those. So if that makes sense. So we were one of those 30. That might be kind of what it means, if that helps you guys picture it in your head. But hi guys, I want to take a quick break and tell you about an opportunity that you guys have as listeners to become subscribers of this podcast. Now, in order to become a sub, all you have to do is follow the subscribe link in the show notes found in the description of each episode. And when you subscribe, you'll get access to exclusive material, including additional interviews, all of my spoken word poetry pieces, all of my dramatized allegorical short stories, and even more of my article readings, okay? So lots of content will be available to you that won't be available to anyone else. Subscribing to the show only costs $5 a month, which is less than most people spend on their lunch at work every day, okay? So you won't even notice it disappearing from your bank account. If you enjoy listening to the show and you're looking for an opportunity to financially support the content you care about, this is your chance, okay? Follow the link in the show notes to become a sub. Thank you so much for choosing this show to listen to. And now, without further ado, let's get back to the episode. Super encouraging for me, definitely there. It says our next prompt is, what are the Restoring Rapport podcast listeners like exactly? Oh, so this is going to be about you guys.
This will be interesting.
Kind of give us some insight into what you listen to online and that kind of thing. We'll see here. It says there's a little flower thing on the screen for those of you who can't see the actual video. And it says your listener's podcast personality is the devotee. So you guys must listen to everything that we post regularly instead of just kind of listening to one episode, which I'm terrible at that. When I listen to podcasts, I always search by subject instead of by podcast producer. So I'll log into a podcast site.
See, that's interesting that they are telling us that when your fans love a podcast, and then you go on down, it says, and they play their favorite episodes over and over.
So you guys must have listened to them more than once.
Yeah, they're listening to these episodes more than once, which is really interesting.
That's good. That's encouraging. Yeah, I mean, at least it means that our stuff is, not a one-time movie kind of thing,
right,
where you watch a movie and you never want to watch it again. At least it's not like that. But yeah, the devotee is the personality type of you guys, our listeners, the devotee. So you guys must be really devoted, listening to all the episodes that we post, loving the content that we post. That's super encouraging. I am not like that when I listen to shows. What I do is I'll go to Apple or Spotify, and in that top search bar, I'll type the subject that I want to listen to, and then whatever podcast pops up there, I click on. Sometimes it's a really big, podcast episode with a big following and a big interviewee and interviewer, but sometimes it's just a small little episode made by some random small name podcast, and that's kind of how I listen. I just kind of go wherever the wind blows in that sense. But you guys are not like that.
I think I'm probably more devotee. I have my shows that I like, and as soon as they post, I'm usually there to listen to it.
Are you? Yeah, that's good. I think I subscribe to like 35 podcasts, so it's probably, if I did that, I'd probably never set my phone down. That might be another reason. I probably follow too many to be the devoted listener, but clearly you guys are not like that. So thank you for being so devoted to the show and being willing to support all that we do. It says we created 4 polls and 55 Q&As. Listeners joined in 3 times. Definitely need to work on that. Guys, for those of you who don't know, the polls and the Q&As, I don't like this statistic because it's only available on Spotify, and most of our listeners are on Apple. And these polls and 55 Q&As that I created, those are all only available on Spotify. So I feel like that's kind of a lame metric there, because most of our listeners aren't there, and clearly the ones that didn't do the Q&As very much. But the way you do them is you scroll down below the episode. Like if you want to comment on it, like a Facebook comment or something, there will be a little yellow box, and in that yellow box you can respond to the question that I give you about the show, or you can answer the poll just by clicking. So for those of you guys who are interested in that, giving us that feedback, you can do so there on Spotify. There are other ways to do it too. You can reach out and message us online or something, but Spotify just makes it super easy. So if you listen through Spotify, be sure to do that. And all that is that gives us feedback on what you guys want to hear and how our content has affected you. So anytime, like, this is a good teacher skill that I've used. Anytime I'm teaching something to my kids in the classroom or something, I have to be able to assess the impact that my words are having. I have to be able to assess how the students are understanding it. If I can't, I'm basically failing as a teacher because I don't even know if I'm having an impact. I'm kind of flying blind in a sense. So when you guys respond to these polls and Q&As, it helps us not fly blind. It helps us be able to know how we're helping you, or if we're not helping you at all. You can say whatever you want in those polls. So be sure to check those out. But that's an area where we can probably try to grow a little more in the future for sure. It says our next prompt is, have you been working out? I assume this is a yearly summit, like a yearly summit type thing. So, here's our gains. Okay. Wow. Here's our gains. So our podcast saw a lot of gains this year, 157% spike in followers. So we got that many more followers than previous years. 70% spike in streams, which that's the biggest thing for me, because that means more of you are listening. 70% more of you are listening this year than last year. That is huge. It says 59% spike in hours listened. So that's probably the length of time that you listen to our episodes. Some people just click on them, listen to 10 minutes, and then close the podcast and never open it again. But 59% spike in hours would suggest that a lot of you stuck around for longer, that's huge. And then 28% grow in listeners. So that's like new people who have never listened to the show before. Not returning listeners, new people who have never listened to the show coming in and joining. But 157% spike in followers, 70% spike in streams, 59% spike in hours listened, and then 28% spike in listeners overall. So I assume that means like new people. So that's encouraging to me, Landon, which I'm sure you have definitely something to do with that, because our listenership has gone up for sure since you've joined, which I knew it would. Who would choose a podcast where one guy's talking versus a podcast where you have different dudes talking? I sure would.
Well, and it's like, I mean, you have, I'm going to brag on you for a little bit. And you have such a nice way of, especially with some of the article reviews that you do, you have such a nice way of reading it and then being able to articulate it to people to where it's not over your head. You keep it very digestible for everyone. And I think that with that comes a lot of people feeling comfortable, coming into a new show.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And that kind of goes, I'll tell you what I'm most excited about with Landon this upcoming year at the end of the episode. So again, guys, stick around and listen to that. I'll do that when we get through. We've done 8 out of 10 of these slides that they're giving us here. It says you and your fans have something special. They're going to probably mention, what you guys have shared. Maybe, I don't know what that would mean. It says here, you're a top 10 podcast for 35 fans. Okay, so 35 if you listen to us more than anything else. That's really cool. So top 10 podcast for 35 fans. No. I'm sorry. 35 fans listen to us in the top 10. We were in their top 10 listen podcast. That's pretty good. A little bit less than what than that first thing I said. I thought it was. We were the top podcast for 35 people. That would have been even better, but still great that we're top 10 for 35. It says you're a top 5 podcast for 24 fans. Oh, okay, so 24 we're top 5, and then you're the top 1 podcast for 9. So 9 of you listen to us more than anybody else. Thank you to those 9. Shout out to those 9. One of you is active on social media, because I know you comment all the time on our stuff, and you mention you share our stuff all the time. So I know who one of you is. One of you, I'm not going to say the name, but one of you even posted us as the top podcast through your Spotify Wrapped on your Instagram story, and I saw it. So grateful for that fan. You know who you are. Really grateful for all that you do and listening to the show and helping us grow. And By the way, just a hint, the guy who did that is a musical genius. I mean, a musical genius. So see if that helps you guess who I'm talking about. But it says the Restoring Rapport podcast. Thank you for sharing this podcast with the world. So that's the Spotify platform thanking us. And then our last page here, number 9 out of 10, sorry, is, let's see, what are they saying? Speaking of sharing, we made something special for you. They're probably going to give us some kind of video maybe, or something of our most listened episodes. I don't know what they're going to do, honestly. Oh, they're giving us a free promo, so we get to use one of these images to share our show with the world. That's pretty cool. Awesome. Very cool. So dude, here it is. We made 61 episodes.
Wow.
1.5, actually it's really more like 1.6k minutes, 8 countries, and 157% spike in followers. That is massive. Guys, we had a massive year. Thank you so much for all that you do, all the time that you spent listening to our show. We're very grateful. Landon and I are super grateful for all that you do. And we're super excited for next year. And that kind of brings us to next year, which next year is going to be big. What I am most excited about for next year, Landon, I'll ask you the same in a minute, but what I am personally most excited about for next year is having a voice on both sides of the issue that this podcast was made for. This podcast was made for young believers pursuing the goal of healthy marriage and family. I am on the unmarried side. Landon is on the married side. And we are able to give you now wisdom, insight, understanding, shared experience from both sides of marriage. And that to me is so big, because in the past I had not been able to give you what it was like on the other side of what I talked about. Like, I'd be like, yeah, get married young is a great thing, but I couldn't tell you what it was like. I could only point you to other people, younger couples that I knew who did it. And I tried to do that as best I could, but it's great to have one on the show. So I'm grateful for you, Landon. Thank you so much for all that you bring in that aspect as well. Totally irreplaceable. The show wouldn't be the same without you. So really excited for next year. That's definitely what I'm most excited about. What are you most excited about for this show for next year? Is it like a content new thing, new area of speaking issue we might be able to break into and talk about, or is it a producing change we might change? What is it for you that you're most excited about?
It's really been awesome to be able to join in on this with you. When you brought it up to me, I was so excited to do it.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons why I was so excited is it's not just for the listeners to me, it's also for me. I mean, I get to sit here and try my best to articulate the things that are already going through my head.
Yeah.
And it's really nice to be able to do that, because you start to develop stronger opinions and more developed opinions.
Yeah.
And you're more articulate with the way that you think. So one thing that I'm really excited about is just being able to continue to develop my personal thinking.
That's great.
While also helping to kind of expose what it really is like to be a young married person.
Yeah. Yeah, there are a lot of misconceptions out there about that. We've talked about that on the show, and now, like you said, Landon, we've got somebody to give us exactly what it's like. So really grateful for that, and thank you guys so much for all that you've done for us this year. It's been incredible. As far as new things this upcoming year, I will say I do want to get into a lot more the interview side. I would love to interview a lot more people this year, like big name people. I would love, I'm just going to go ahead and say it. Here's who I want to interview this year. I want to interview Jefferson Bethke. I want to interview, he's a famous young guy. Now he's probably 30s, but famous young guy. He's done a ton of work in the marriage and family realm, as well as being a believer, which already that narrows your interview options down to just about 0. So he's somebody that I really want to have on the show. Danny Silk. Most of our followers, Danny Silk is one of the people that they also follow. Like, most of the people who have heard of us have heard of Danny Silk and his ministry, Loving on Purpose, The Kylo Show, Keep Your Love On, Culture of Honor, his books. They really love him. I'd love to interview him on the show. Brittany and Ben, his son and or his daughter and son-in-law, really love to interview them. Seth Studley, love to have him back. You can go back and check out the episode we've done with him in the past. Jeremy Pryor, love to do another episode with him. I'd love to have Jason Valentin on the show, because a lot of our audience is young men, and he is really good at speaking to young men. He has a unique gifting there. So those are some of the big names, guys, of people that I really love to interview in the upcoming year. But as far as content, expect much of the same with some more new added in there. I won't get quite into what that is, but we're really excited for all the stuff that's going to develop here. I would also like to do more merch. So more merch this year, count on that. We kind of broke into that realm this year a little bit with our hats. And I kind of did a sweater design that I'm wearing now, this hoodie, to see how you guys would like that. The response was pretty good, but I did not invest in the actual merch. So I'd like to do that this year. As far as anything new, I think that just wraps it up. So thank you guys so much for listening today. It's been an honor to speak to you, be in your ear. I know Landon feels the same. We're very grateful again for the 8 millionth time for you choosing this episode, other podcasts. We're so appreciative for that. We'll kind of share these stats on our social media page for those of you who missed this episode, but overall, we're just super grateful for everything that you guys do. Thank you so much for listening today. Follow the Restoring Report podcast on Instagram and Facebook if you like our content there. Reach out and let us know what you thought of the episode through the link in the show notes. You can send us a personalized audio voice message in your own voice. We love hearing those. It makes us feel super connected to our audience. That's another thing I want to grow in this year is the voice messages, because I love to hear the impact that we're having on people in real time. So love that. Be sure to do that if you haven't already. Thank you guys so much for listening today, and we will talk to you next time.